This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode, I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 338 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast about staying in hostels. Firstly, let me pay my respects to the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, where I'm recording this podcast today. Now, over my travels, I have stayed in hostels many times, especially in my 20s. I couldn't count how many hostels I have laid my head down in, of varying quality and price, definitely varying quality over the years, and from the $5 bed to the $100 room, all over the world. Unfortunately, I've stayed in fewer hostels in recent years, but it was only a couple of years ago my son and I shared a hostel room with my friend Catherine in the Blue Mountains, YHA, just inland from Sydney, and that was a great spot to stay. So I have to say that was my son's first hostel stay, I think. Yeah, I think that's probably it in his lifetime, but I'm hoping now that he's a 6-foot teenager that there might be some hostel stays both together and on his own or with his mates in the future. So long live the youth hostel / hostel. You don't have to be a youth anymore. So I really enjoy them for lots of reasons. And in this episode, we are going to start with a guest who's telling us some of the favourite reasons travellers like to be in hostels. And then I have a chat with a traveller who loves them so much he actually built and opened his own. And then, harking back to the varying quality, we'll finish up with a reminder that not all hostels are created equal, and sometimes budget accommodation is really cheap for a reason. Having said that, it all leads to stories we remember and, looking back, fun experiences. Now, my first guest today is Jamie Burr, who, like me, loves to stay in a hostel.
Love the hostel experience. Even if there was, a hotel private room on offer, I'd probably lean more towards the hostel because, I just love that social experience. And again, it's meeting different people. It's that social community thing where, you meet these new friends, these new connections, and every day can throw up something completely different. You might have a plan or idea of what you want to do in the back of your mind that's been best things to do in Bangkok or whatever, but they're obviously not the best. They've just been regurgitated over and over again, these same ideas. And then you'll meet someone interesting who says, hey, do you want to go on this river kayaking experience with this guy I know? Yes, absolutely.
I really do, yeah.
But, I've stayed in loads and loads of different hostels. Some of my favorites aren't that visually appealing, but they've just got that vibe and atmosphere. Like there's this one place, Sunbeds or something in Kuala Lumpur. In terms of a guest experience there, it was pretty horrendous. I mean, there was no air con
in KL,
this sort of communal area. I was like, oh my God, everyone's roasting here. The dorm rooms were tiny, and you heard cases of bed bugs in there and things, but just the communal atmosphere in there, there's something about it that was better than any other. People would go out on nights together, they'd explore the city together and find these amazing foods, and then you get to connect with people from different countries and cultures, learn about the world. So that's probably one of my favorite hostels. Then there are these just amazing places which are, in old prisons and things like that. I think one in Ottawa owned by Hosteling International, I think. There's a prison hostel which used to be this old jail, and you'd sleep in the cells. Yeah, that was another one that's really stood out to me because it was just so different. And you'd have like the big sort of spiral staircase backed against all these four walls going down and down and darker and darker.
Oh, wow.
And they would do tours of the whole prison as well, like what happened there, like executions and things like that, which is kind of getting into the dark tourism side of things, but it made it really, really unique. And so many great hostels out there, and I really love the experience that it offers. And you see, I remember when I was doing my master's degree, actually, the reason I took my master's in sustainable tourism was actually because of my love for backpacking and my sort of
Mm.
pipe dream when I started, very different to when I finished getting into responsible and sustainable tourism. But when I started, I had this pipe dream of, okay, I'm going to graduate, going to move to South America or Southeast Asia, set up my own little hostel and just live a nice laid back life. But
Interesting.
that was the dream, but very quickly I discovered all these issues that needed fixing within sustainable tourism, and I just thought, oh, it's too much to sweep under the rug here and then enjoy a nice,
Mm.
quiet, peaceful life. But yeah,
It's a pity,
that
but I
was
get it. Yeah.
it used to be a dream. Maybe when I retire
Maybe
or
it's
something.
I was just going to say, maybe it's a retirement dream and you can have a beautiful, sustainable hostel that still does good work, has a relaxing lifestyle attached.
Yeah, I hope so.
So while Jamie is dreaming of maybe he'll have a hostel in his retirement one day, my next guest is blogger Will Hatton, who has already gone down the path of such a dream. I recorded this chat with Will a year or so back about the process of setting up his own hostel in Bali, and I started by asking him why he decided to do this in the first place.
Yeah, so that came from two different directions. The first was that on my site, we do a lot with Hostel World. I was one of Hostel World's biggest affiliates, and it meant that we had an advantage where we were already capturing a lot of traffic for hostel-related keywords. So I was like, hey, rather than making like 50 cents a booking, wouldn't it be awesome if I had a physical property to direct these people towards? So that was kind of the push that I needed. But the original idea was that I was continuously finding as my businesses evolved and I needed to work more to grow things, it was very difficult for me to find the kind of facilities that I wanted to be able to get the best of the backpacker lifestyle, meeting cool people, brainstorming, etc., whilst also being able to do a call or have reliable Wi-Fi or find a standing desk. So we decided that we would build Indonesia's first co-working hostel. It took 3 years to build. It was custom designed. It was just like a field when we bought the original piece of land. It's really a very large boutique hostel with like a dedicated co-working space, a bar, a restaurant, a pool table, board games, standing desk, co-working booths, everything you need so that like if you are working remotely or if you are taking kind of like a work holiday or if you're working on building your own entrepreneurship venture, you can very much still find your tribe, experience the best of travel, experience the community, bouncing ideas off of each other, and have the facilities you need.
Are you mostly attracting online digital content creator, blogger types, or are there people who are doing all sorts of other jobs who are showing up? What kind of people are actually staying there?
It's actually been a really interesting mix. There's definitely the fair share of like bloggers and influencers and that sort of thing. We've also got every other entrepreneur under the sun, a lot of crypto traders, website designers, Facebook ads guys, drop shippers. It's really like enabling people to find a community where it's like, hey, I know about dropshipping, you know about website design, let's have a conversation, you know? And we're trying to put on more community events to get those conversations rolling more easily. We're going to have speakers coming in once we've finished. We're working on like an amphitheater style seating for a stage area at the moment. Once that's finished, we'll be having speakers come in. But it's been a very mixed bag, including people like from London, from New York, for example, who have only got 2 weeks off work and they want to experience a hostel, but they want a nice hostel where if they need to take a call, they can. So we get people, you know, like there isn't a lot here in Bali anyway, which really fulfills the like boutique hostel vibe. You know, like well-appointed rooms, clean bathrooms, a decent restaurant. Like a lot of the hostels here are more mum and pop operations or are just like crazy party hostels that are kind of filthy. So it doesn't really... There's definitely a group of people who are looking for something different, and those are the kind of people that we're serving.
What about, you know, I hear from, I mean, I'm self-employed, so I don't know, but I hear from people with real jobs that more and more their employers are actually letting them kind of work remotely and travel at times, so they could spend a month working from Bali. Are you getting those kind of people who have normal jobs?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, there's a big remote work crowd here in Bali and at Tribal in particular, like all sorts from all walks of life. So it's really pretty interesting just going in there,
Yeah.
playing the game of pool, having a coffee or a coconut. We've got like a really big communal table. So it's like foster starting of conversations. So I quite like sitting in the middle of that and just like talking to everyone. It's fun.
I can imagine. It sounds absolutely fascinating. It seems to me like having a physical business, like basically building a hostel in a foreign country, sounds like it would be fraught with difficulties. It's something I think I would not even bother thinking about trying. How did it go? Like, what was hard? What was easy?
It was definitely difficult, honestly, especially because we had started construction before COVID, and then we ended up encountering a lot of issues with just getting the materials, especially the steel that we needed for the physical building. Right. At one point, our entire workforce went back to the island of Java and then got stuck there for like 3 months because Bali went into a full lockdown. So there was just one guy working on this huge project, you know, like trying to build this massive trench of a space. Yeah, it was definitely a challenge. I absolutely cannot take even 20% of the credit for getting the thing built because my business partner handled a lot of the build, whereas I've handled a lot of the strategy and all of the online. And that's kind of where our skills have intersected.
That makes sense. Is your business partner local?
No, he's actually British as well. We do have a local fixer who has a small amount of the business in exchange for helping us deal with any legal issues that may occur, being able to rubber stamp things. And you need that. There was definitely a lot of challenges. I mean, we ended up opening like 2 years later than we expected, and we'd like poured all of our money into it. So, you know, it was pretty fraught with tension along the way, but we seem to be coming out the other side now.
So Will's hostel, which is called Tribal in Bali, sounds pretty awesome. I would definitely like to stay there. However, my next guest is Christina Koullas, and she tells me about the hostel she stayed in Barcelona some years ago, which was not quite as cool. The preamble is that Christina had already flown from Cyprus, where she was living at the time, to Athens to meet up basically in the middle of the night with her cousin Stelana. And so there had already been a few flight and taxi issues before they set off for their Barcelona hostel. And then there were, well, even more.
Another questionable taxi to our hostel. And so keeping in mind it was Easter weekend, my cousin had organised the accommodation. It was only a week out, and then even that fell through. So the hostel we ended up being in, like, she'd only booked a few days beforehand. We get there, there's an abandoned building, no sign of where to press the doorbell. So, well, there were, but there were 6 doorbells, and my cousin just pressed them all, and we finally were let in. So it was the actual hostel. We get up to the reception. There's this, we just always called him the little Spanish man in the red vest, because that's how we remember him. So the red vest man, Stelana says, because she had tried to confirm the booking as well, but they never answered the phone, which turns out it was wrong on the site, you know, she had booked it on. So he does have our booking, much to our relief, but he says to us, your room is not ready, come back later. And it was 2 p.m. by this stage, and we asked, when's the room going to be ready? He says, I don't know. You need to pay now.
Oh, no.
And we said, well, we're not paying until we can actually see the room, and when we actually know we can get into our room. It wasn't a good start to the stay. And he also wanted our passports, which we eventually did hand over once we were in the room, but we weren't very comfortable about it. So we had to wait in the lounge area there. We just decided this was a shambles and started looking at our travel guides as to where we could stay. And Stelana did actually find another hotel that looked way flashier and had almost the same rates, which was really surprising. She rang and there wasn't a room available that night, but there was a room for the next 2 days. And so then the little red vest man overheard the conversation, and he says, no, you have to stay here. And we said, like, no, fine, we're leaving. And we eventually he said, all right, like, you stay tonight and then we'll decide in the morning what you're doing for the next 2 nights. We finally get into the room. You know, of course, it's not very special. And not great. We have stayed in hostels before, so it's not like we'd stayed in 4 or 5 star beforehand. But yeah, it didn't look good. There was like a squash bee on the wall. We just always remember the squash bee. Open the curtains, of course, it's a brick wall across from the the window.
Oh, I have stayed in places like
Yeah.
this too. Yes, I feel it in my bones.
Yeah. We'd originally booked a private shower, but of course we didn't because we're only taking the room for one night at this stage. He put us in a different room. So there was the shared bathroom, which we've done before, but and the shower itself was pretty clean, but the floor was so filthy. I was like, I can't put anything on the floor. And so I had to balance, there was this little base and I had to balance everything on 5 centimeters of porcelain. And there was a spider, of course, in the bathroom, but I'm not arachnophobic, so that was doable.
Lucky.
Yeah. So we went, we thought, well, we were going to take a nap because we were so tired. But after seeing the hostel, we thought, no, let's just go exploring. So we did that and, did our special adventures, ended up in the bad side of town without realizing it because my cousin and I can sometimes be a bit off with the fairies, but did make it back alive, which was great. And we did have
fun,
a great...
though.
Yeah. These are the things you remember.
Well, exactly. You're still telling this story.
That's right. We got rained on. We were soaking, but we had a fantastic tapas dinner. So that was really nice. So we were trying to stay out of we just had a feeling that we would be accosted when we got back to the hostel about what our plans were. So we got back at 11:30 and we were trying to sneak back into our room. And of course, the Spanish man in the red vest appeared. He was telling us we had to stay the next 2 nights and we got into this argument.
Does he have your passports at this stage?
He does have our passports.
Oof.
Right? So
he's got a position of power in this scenario.
And we were doing this good cop, bad cop thing. One of us was being really harsh and the other one was trying to be the negotiator. And in the end, it just ended up as this standoff where, because he wanted the room key back. There was an inside bolt, so we could be in the room safely, but he wanted the key back. So we ended up doing an actual exchange where we wouldn't give the key until he gave us a passport. So we were exchanging them at the same time.
Oh my goodness,
so we did,
this is awful.
Yeah, so we did get the passports back, which was great. And then we spent the night in the room and it was freezing. It was Barcelona and I think it was March and it was just freezing and we used our coats as blanket. Luckily, I'd had a travel liner at least because I'd been doing a lot of solo travel, but my poor cousin didn't and she's got less body fat than I do. So I think that's why she was colder than I was. I think she only slept till 4 a.m. In the morning, the red vest man told us to book with them again when we were next in Barcelona.
And you said, maybe not?
Yeah.
Or you just said, yeah, we're going now, bye.
Yeah, exactly. We're going now. But the rest of the trip was pretty good. And after that, the next hotel we had just felt like, the Taj Mahal. So we did, it did get better. But it did feel like a whatever could go wrong did go wrong kind of trip.
Yes. It does sound like that. Oh, but I kind of miss the dodgy hostel days.
I know.
It's been a while since I've done a dodgy hostel. So.
Yeah, and you do meet amazing people when you're doing the shared dorms.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a bad memory of the same kind of bathroom scenario in Taipei. So it was one level worse because it was not only filthy but also flooded. It was flooded and dirty. It was just gross. And I wore thongs and everything, but it was. You were traipsing through, I don't know what.
Yeah.
And I ended up with this awful fungal infection on my foot.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I was living in Japan at the time, on holidays in Taiwan for a bit, and then kind of another month or so in Japan before I came back to Perth, and then we were going up to Russia, to the Trans-Siberian. This foot thing was just itchy. And when I was back in Perth, I went to the doctor and I said, what's going on? And he took a swab or something. And I always remember he called me the next day to say, you have to come back.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, what is this like? It was just really itchy and looked a bit gross. But he said, no, I have to look again and just check. And then he gave me massively strong antibiotics. And he said, this is a really nasty one. I was like, okay. And so then I was on these really strong antibiotics that you couldn't drink with all through Russia. I was going across the Trans-Siberian and people would offer us vodka and they were like, I can't. Because he'd put the fear of God into me that it would be terrible to mix them or whatever. But it did clear up. So it's okay. But I always remember that as my souvenir from Taipei.
Yes, always bring your thong/jandals/
Yes, I needed rubber boots for that bathroom. Oh, look, I almost remember that hostel quite fondly in a way. And apart from that, I absolutely love Taipei and Taiwan as a whole, and I cannot wait to go back there one day. Also, just to point out to non-Aussie listeners that Christina refers to wearing your thongs in the bathroom there. And by thongs, we mean flip-flops. It's a confusing Australian term, I think. So that is episode 338 on hostels. Thank you so much for listening. And I have a bunch of hostel recommendations, not just those that our guests mentioned today, not including the bad ones, obviously, but the good ones, as well as some really interesting hostel recommendations that I have gathered from Facebook and LinkedIn from the various people that I chat with there, and especially the Thoughtful Travellers groups. And I'm going to put all of those in the show notes. There's some really cool places like castles, prisons, you name it. All sorts of places have been turned into hostels. And it's a list of, really pretty random places around the world, but they've all been tried and tested by thoughtful travellers. So that's what's got them on the list. Thank you also to the guests for this episode. It was a really fun one to put together. So thanks to Jamie Burr. You can find out more about Jamie's work in responsible tourism marketing at jamieburr.com. Thanks also to Will Hatton, aka the Broke Backpacker, and you can also find his hostel at Tribal Bali. Just look in any booking sites or on Instagram, tribal_Bali. And a huge thanks to my dear friend Christina Koullas for her wonderful what went wrong in the hostel story. Don't forget, of course, to come and chat with us, either the Facebook group or the LinkedIn group for Thoughtful Travellers. And the Thoughtful Travellers newsletter is on Substack these days. Just look for thoughtfultravel.substack.com. So the interesting, cool hostel list and all of these details and more will be in the show notes. And for this episode, you can find them at notaballerina.com/338. As always, thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.